Hello and welcome to today's Pet and Health Safety segment. I'm Denise Fleck, the Pet Safety Crusader, bringing you the tips you need to know to be the one to make a difference in the life of an animal. The heat is on. It is officially summer, and no matter what part of the country you live in, I think it's warming up. I hear the Northeast still is going to have an absolutely spectacular day, but that it is going to get warm very quickly. So no matter whether you're planning a vacation or a staycation with your pets this summer, you need to be aware of the different catastrophes and doggy dangers that they can get themselves into pretty much 24/7. That's part of being a conscientious pet parent, because we know when we have a dog or a cat, we basically have a toddler for life that needs us to supervise, supervise, supervise. So additionally, you need to know the first aid for heat stroke, for drowning injuries, for bee stings, snake bites, cuts and scrapes, all of the things that can befall your pet at this time of year. Please look back on the beginning, the header, the written part of this blog today. I have the link to take you to my written blog on my website, which is also petsafetycrusader.com/blogs. But it's really got the tips spelled out for you so that you can keep them in mind. And it's also very intense with links on this particular issue. So look for the highlighted words, because it's going to take you to other blogs that will teach you about heat stroke. That'll teach you about the staycations versus vacations. They're going to teach you about giardia, which are some of the watertime dangers that can befall our pets. And it'll also link you back to our Memorial Day weekend pet safety tips, because a lot of those apply as well, because summer now, from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day, and in some parts of the country even beyond that, we're going to have to keep all of these things in mind. So the first thing I want to talk about is water. Make sure your pets have enough water. Just like us in the planet Earth, they're about 3/4 water, and they require a good, healthy supply at all times. So positively make sure you're washing out those bowls every day with warm, soapy water, and then getting rid of the soap and filling it with fresh water and keeping it filled all day long. If you have a pet that also has a water bowl outside, absolutely make sure that's filled with water. Make sure it refills itself if you're not there constantly refilling it. And make sure it's in a shady area all day long, because as the sun turns at different times of the day, it may be beating down on the water and too hot to drink. There's another portion of water I'd really like to talk about as well, and that's the kind that your pets may fall into or actually enjoy and go swimming. And even if a dog's middle name is Retriever, that doesn't guarantee he's an excellent swimmer. It's just not completely innate. Some dogs, like some people, take to water right away, and others just do not. Especially the more shorter neck breeds, they have trouble keeping their heads out of the water and staying afloat and not sucking the water into their nose, their mouths, and then ultimately into their lungs. So it's imperative that if we have a pool in our yard, it's fenced or it's constantly supervised. Do not ever think of a pool cover as a safety device. People and animals fall in the pool, go underneath the cover, and then can't find their way out. There are some, and I've seen one person I know, one trainer in the Los Angeles area that has one of those rubberized covers that's actually bolted down, and I've seen her and a whole pack of labs walk across it. But unless you have that kind that is so safe and so secure, just constantly monitor. There are different devices. One's called the safety turtle, but I know there's others out there, and they were intended for kids initially, that it would be a little bracelet with a little plastic turtle on it with a radio operated device, but they also have ones that you can put on your pet's collars, and should the pet fall into the water, a remote signal in your house signals you. But there are other kinds of pool alarms like that as well, but nothing does better than you just supervising your furry children. However, if you're going off on a boating adventure or to the lake or to a stream or even in your pool, very often conscientious pet parents, are somewhat prepared, and they do have a life vest of sorts. These can be great, especially when they have this strap, because it helps you kind of swim with your pet and grab him if need be, and it does keep him afloat. But the problem is more than 5,000 dogs die every year from drowning incidents. And it's generally because they fatigue. Unlike us, even if we get to a sandbar out in the lake or someplace, we can put our feet down and we can rest. They can't. Dogs can't tread water. And they get really tired and they fatigue, and then that's when they go under. So although this vest is great, and if the dog fatigues, he may not go under, his face may be down in the water, his nose and his mouth, and he could drown. So that's why I want to share with you this really cool water collar. It's by my friends at Heads Up, HEDZUpPets.com. It bumps over, I believe, but there's also SaveDogsFromDrowning.com is their website. And you can see from this picture the way that the collar, the dog's actual collar attaches to the Heads Up collar. It keeps his head and face out of the water, even his ears. So even if a doggy's fatiguing and he falls into the pool, or he's swimming in the pool and he gets tired, his head is going to stay up and out of the water. I have one right here that Haiku has used in the past in our pool. Gosh, forgive me, I'm going blind these days. I can't find the Velcro. And you'll see what it is. It's made of a closed cell foam, so it doesn't absorb the water. It stays on the surface. And all these cool little loops here, you actually take your pet's own collar and feed it through there first, and then put the collar back on the pet and Velcro the Heads Up collar in place. What that does is it makes this not too tight against his neck. It kind of floats a little freely away from his face, but allows the chin to rest on it like you see in the picture, and it doesn't obstruct his view. So it's just a great safety device. It can help teach a dog to swim. And what it does, this picture, I should have printed it out a little bit bigger for you, but I'm going to come in here close. You can see the difference in a traditional life vest. When the doggy fatigues, his face goes under. When he passes out, when he's unconscious, when he's just too tired. Where with the Heads Up collar, even if his body, if he's kind of not able to keep his body afloat anymore, his head is staying afloat. So this can really, really be a lifesaver for your pet. And I strongly encourage, you can just access them through my website. My great friends now at Heads Up are offering my students a 15% discount on this Heads Up collar. So the link is actually here in the post. But if you go to my shopping cart area and look under the page Products We Love, and you've got a picture of me and Haiku on that page, you will see Heads Up collar. And with the code Crusader, you'll get 15% off. And these collars come in small, medium, large, and extra large. So I believe the small can even fit a kitty cat. If you do have a cat that roams about or likes to swim, because there are some of them out there. And as you can see, it's hexagonal. Like I said, it doesn't fit too closely to the neck. It doesn't obstruct their vision or choke in any way. And it'll fit pets from 3 pounds to 200 pounds. So I really think, that is something you should, I strongly urge you to check into if you have a pet near water at any point in time, because even the best swimmers, human, canine, or feline, can fatigue and need a little help. And since they can't get their feet on the ground once the water is, more than 18 inches or even less in some cases, depending on the size of your pet, it's really, really a beneficial thing to do. Also, as you can imagine, one of the summer tips I'm going to mention is never, ever, ever leave your pet in a parked car. I don't care if you're just running in for a Slurpee. That car gets so hot so quickly, even with the windows rolled down. The front and back window are doing that greenhouse effect. Most of the time when we park, we're parking on asphalt or concrete, which is already hot and radiating up through the metal. And remember, your pets are panting 101, 102, 103, 104 as they start getting warmer and warmer. So in just a few minutes, the interior of a car can become 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and we know that's way too hot for any living creature. So if you can't take your pet with you on every stop, into the air-conditioned building, it's much better to leave them at home in a temperate environment. And then that leads me to, the best place for our pets when the weather does heat up is in the air-conditioned home. At the very least, if you have an outdoor pet or outdoor aviary for birds, if you have bunnies in a hutch, you have to have, fans and a misting system. Rabbits do not do well once it gets over 80 degrees. So, they really need to be brought inside if they're, out at all. So really keep this in mind. As far as the ground itself goes, if it's too hot for you to walk on barefoot, it's too hot for their precious paws. So I know I'm going through some of this quickly, but all of this is in my written blog with links to other articles so that you can really read up on it and be an aficionado as to how to keep your pets safe all summer long. Think about kitties. It may not be super hot and you may have windows open in the house, and they may, cats can tolerate heat much better than dogs, and they may enjoy that sunny windowsill. I want you to be really sure that those screens are secured tightly, because if she leans against it and the screen pops out, kitty falls out. And, even when animals get hit by cars or suffer falls, they get up and they run away, and people think, oh, they're okay. Not so much. It's generally adrenaline and endorphins that cause them to move quickly first, but they may, be suffering, fractures. They may have internal bleeding and other problems. So do all you can to keep your furry kids safe all summer long. That means watching for the things you put on your yard as well as the house. You may be done with your spring cleaning already, but that pretty much continues all the time. So pay attention to the chemicals you're using on the countertops if the cat jumps up on it wet, and the things that you're using to mop your floors. Make sure they're pet friendly. The same thing goes with anything you put on your lawn. Remember, when they walk across it, what isn't absorbed through their little paws actually gets ingested when they lick and groom themselves. Just going through and seeing, I'm so glad so many of you are joining today, and I know more of you generally get to see this in replay, so that's awesome. I just thank you guys for tuning in and trying to get the 411 from me on your pets. And I see, oh yes, I was happy to mention Heads Up Pets. This collar just can do so much good for any animal that's around water. So we'll mention it again before we go, but a few more things I just want to talk to you about. I don't want to forget is, as I was talking about fertilizers and insecticides and anything that you put on your lawn. If it says it's organic, don't think that means it's safe that if your pet gets into it. The two most heavily used organic fertilizers are bone and blood meal, which come from animals. So they smell good, especially to our dogs, and our pets want to ingest them. Well, bone meal is literally what it sounds like. It's the bones of cows and cattle and animals that's ground up. And when it is ingested by our pets and gets in their stomach, it actually forms concrete-like balls that have to be surgically removed. So just because it's organic doesn't mean it's safe to eat or consume or even get on their bodies. So just keep all of that in mind. I also want to remind you about Giardia. If you go to the dog parks, your dogs love these parks, but bring your own water bowl. Just even dumping out the community bowl and putting in fresh water doesn't do it, because there's a biofilm that grows from all the other doggy tongues. And also that's something that's outside in the heat all day. Algae and other bacteria can get in there. So when your pets are drinking from unsavory water sources, they can positively get Giardia, which is a little protozoa that gets in the intestines. They can also get this from eating feces of other animals as well. And what it does is it results in massive quantities of vomiting and diarrhea that when you share a little saliva kiss with your pet, or if you're actually just cleaning up the vomit and diarrhea and happen to have a little cut on your hand, it gets into you, and you too have massive quantities of vomiting and diarrhea. Usually, it can be controlled. Both you and the pets can get medication, but you just want to avoid this from happening. So our pets need that water all day long, and they may enjoy swimming in it too, but in both cases, make sure that water is safe for them to ingest, and that you're keeping it safe and supervising them if they're flopping around and having a great time in it. Let's see, I've already mentioned the concrete and asphalt. Some people like to bike and rollerblade with their pets. Well, especially as it's heating up. For some reason, some, not all of us, but some people do think animals are more like machines and they can just go, 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 go. And oftentimes, and I encourage it if you're an active person, you know, certainly when you adopt a pet, get him out there and get him active and do things with you. But also, first of all, remember his most recent history. If he's been sitting in a shelter for weeks or days or months, he may not have his endurance up, and you're going to have to start slow. You can't go from 0 to 60. And also, just because they are animals doesn't mean that they do have that great of endurance, depending on their conditioning, their breed type, their body weight, the whole bit, their age as well. So if you're biking or rollerblading, it's actually a whole lot easier for you on those wheels than it is for them on 4 paws. So make sure you take breaks. All of those things always concern me about leashes getting caught in chains or, you know, something else along the way. So just be so safe. And, you know, remember, this is your best friend, your best pal, and you don't want to overexert. You guys know I'm always talking about Haiku, my best buddy back here, and he turned 13 a week ago, and I'm seeing him slow down. We're taking a little slower on our walks, also because it's, you know, the warmer part of the year now, and maybe not going quite as far. But the point is to enjoy whatever time that is you're together. Be in the moment with your pet. And being in the moment not only means just, you know, feeling that heart-to-heart connection, but paying attention, watching what's in front of him, that he doesn't step in it or grab it in his mouth, and watching how his body is reacting, making sure he's not getting too tired, that you're taking periodic breaks. When you're out for a walk, it's better to stop more frequently and give him little bits of water to drink than to wait till you reach the end of your route and let him tank up, because then he can bloat, or if he's already too hot, he may regurgitate it. So, you know, there can be all kinds of complications that I've talked about in other videos and blogs before. But I just want to remind you, it is getting warmer out there. Our pets have fur coats, but that does not mean you should shave them off for the summer. That fur absolutely insulates their skin and keeps them cooler. It protects them from sunburn. It protects them from some of the mosquito bites that I'm getting and from some of the burrs and thorns that are out there. So, you know, if you go to your groomer and want to clip them down a little bit and keep it under control a little bit, because depending on your environment, your pet may be getting in the rain and mud puddles and different things, and if he's got long coats, it could be matted. You can keep it under control, but do not shave down their fur. Also, I just want to remind you about cookouts, because this is a fun time of year to cook out, and sometimes it's a lot easier to cook outside than to, you know, heat up the kitchen. But remember to monitor those grills once again, so that a snout or a couple of paws don't get burned trying to steal that burger or that hot dog or whatever it happens to be, that great piece of eggplant that you're grilling on it as well. Also, sometimes we engage in the summer. Some people engage in more salads and fruits and those kind of foods, which for the most part can be healthy for pets. But again, remember, you know, we've talked about this before, certain fruits and vegetables that aren't as good for our pets. Chicken and potato chips and all of those salty foods can result in pancreatitis. So I'm not saying your dog can't ever have a potato chip, but, you know, keep it to 1 or 2, especially depending on the size of the pet. And, you know, just do your best to, you know, be that pet parent, because your dog or cat truly is a toddler for life. And we have to monitor them because they don't always know what's best for them. And I was just actually recording a rabbit first aid course that's now available if anybody, you know, cares for rabbits and pocket pets and needs to learn some of those tips. But I was going into talking about, you know, wild bunnies and why you can never let a domesticated rabbit go free, because for one thing, he doesn't know which plants are safe to eat because we've domesticated them. And you have to remember that about our dogs and cats too. They don't really know out there what they can eat. They're just going to eat anything that smells good and probably smells nasty to us. We've taken them into our lives and our hearts, and we just have to do all we can to keep them safe. So I thank you guys so much for joining in today. Yes, Gail, you are absolutely right. Vegetables, and I know I've talked about this before, but dogs and cats have a much shorter intestinal tract than we do. So stuff passes through it much more quickly, and it's harder for them to break down the cellulose, the plant fiber. So in order for them to really extract the nutrients out of vegetables, you either need to steam them lightly, chop them very fine, or puree them. And, you know, all of the fruits we've talked about before with stone pits or seeds, apples, cherries, plums, peaches, the fruit may be very beneficial for your pet. But remember those pits, if they actually crack them open, they contain cyanide or arsenic depending on the fruit. And that obviously can be problematic. So stay up to speed on your various food safe items for your dogs and cats. Make sure they're ingesting enough water and staying well hydrated throughout the summer, that you're keeping your eyes open for, you know, poisonous plants, bee stings, snake bites. Also watch plants that don't bother your pet. Poison oak and poison ivy, for instance, generally aren't problematic to our pets. They don't ever hit the skin. It stays on the fur. But then when you hug the pet, you can get it too. And it's practically healed up here. But you can't even really see it anymore. But I had a good little case of poison oak last week. And I don't remember getting into it. So it's very likely I could have gotten it off a haiku. So let me conclude in just reminding you again about the benefits of the Heads Up Water Collar, that even when your pet fatigues, it keeps his face, his nose, his ears out of water. Look at this Golden having just a fabulous time in it. And I've showed it to you today and how easy it is to put on your dog's collar. It floats just a slight bit away from his neck so it's not obtrusive, and it just could be a lifesaver. So for all of my students, go to my shopping cart and the Products We Love page, click on Heads Up, and you can get 15% off this with the code word Crusader. You guys are great for tuning in, because that means you are really, you know, in the know, and you're conscientious, and you want to know everything you can to keep these adorable furry friends of ours and family members safe. Take care, have an awesome possum week, and I'll see you next time.